Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Protecting Yourself and Your Team, Coverage Essentials for Businesses. I'm Jen Donovan from the Branding and Stakeholder Engagement Unit here at the Workers' Compensation Board, and joining me today from our Advocate for Business Office is Anthony Tomaselli. Today we will discuss the basics of the workers' compensation system, including insurance types, coverage requirements, and employers' obligations under the law. We will also cover who needs coverage and who does not need coverage, how and when to report an injury or illness, including COVID-19, considerations when hiring independent contractors, laborers, and domestic workers, lowering premiums and penalties, and where to go for assistance with them. We will be using the chat feature to receive your questions today. Please enter your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box located on the right side of your screen. Anthony will answer as many of your questions as he can, but if there are any he doesn't get to, or if you think of something after the session ends, we will be providing you with additional resources at the end of the presentation. Also, your name and email were given to us when you registered. However, if you have a specific topic you'd like to discuss more in depth with the board, please share that topic along with your contact information in the chat box so the appropriate board staff can follow up with you. The chat settings are configured so that only panelists can see questions or comments that come in, so you do not have to worry about others seeing your personal information. And with that, I will turn it over to Anthony for today's presentation.
Thank you so much, Jen. I hope everybody can hear me okay. If you cannot hear me or you're having any issues at all, throw a note in the chat and we'll try to fix it. As Jen said, you can definitely put your questions in the chat. We'll try to keep an eye on the questions as they come in. If I see something, I catch something, I'll try to answer it as we go. If I don't get the question right away, at the end, we'll definitely try to take the time to catch up on any unanswered questions. So with that, I am going to get started. All right, I know we had a 12 o'clock start and we're a little bit past 12 now. I know people will be joining in. Hopefully they'll catch up. My contact information will be shared at the end of the presentation for anybody that wants to reach out with additional questions. So let's get started here. Hang on a second. How do I advance this slide? There we go. All right. So give you a little background, Workers' Compensation Board. What are we, right? A lot of people don't really know that much about it. Why would you? So the Workers' Compensation Board, we were created in 1914 as part of a number of labor reforms that came about after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. There was, quite a lot of attention then at that time at workers and the conditions that they were facing and what to do. I mean, it's an age-old problem, right? What happens to people when they get hurt on the job and can't go back to work right away? How do we help those people out? How do businesses get on with their way? So in New York, we really started looking carefully at this about 100 years ago, a little more than that, and we created this Workers' Compensation Board and the workers' compensation system that we have right now. We oversee that. The board oversees the system, makes sure it functions as it's expected, makes sure that injured workers get the benefits they're entitled to when it happens, make sure that employers get the right coverage, and that their employees are taken care of when they do have those accidents and injuries so that they don't come back and sue the employers. So we're like the regulator of the system. All the participants, the insurance carriers, they've got to send us reports. The medical providers provide assistance. They send us reports. We make sure they're all doing what they're supposed to do as required by the law. Whenever there are disputes, that's probably the biggest function that the board handles, when there's disputes within the system and people are disagreeing about an outcome on a claim, the board will step in and adjudicate those disputes. We have close to 1,000 employees statewide, and we serve you, the people of New York. So what's my role specifically here at the Workers' Compensation Board? Well, I am the advocate for business. The advocate for business, my role is to assist individuals with coverage and compliance problems, educate businesses, right? Let you all know, like what we're doing right now with this webinar, what you need to know, how you need to comply with the law and take care of your workers. We try to get out. We do these monthly webinars, but I'm also happy to come out and visit you. If you're part of any type of a group, a chamber of commerce, a professional association, and you'd like to us to come and do a workshop and a presentation and do a deep dive into insurance and risk management and how we can help you, we're definitely happy to do that. Reach out to us. One of the cool things about our role is we report directly to the chair of the Workers' Compensation Board. They want to hear what we learn from you as we're out there speaking with you. And we don't have to go through the bureaucracy. We go right to the top when we have issues and concerns. So let's get right into the meat and potatoes here. So workers' compensation, it's in the name, right? That's the big type of insurance that we're most known for. Workers' compensation insurance, you buy it, and it covers any on-the-job accidents, injuries, and illnesses to your workers. If somebody gets hurt or sick on the job, the workers' compensation insurance will provide the medical, pay for all the medical costs, and a wage replacement goes with that to help keep food on the table and keep a roof over the head. This is good for both the employers and the employees because, you know, in the old days before we had this workers' compensation system, if you were hurt on the job, if a worker got hurt on the job, if they had no means to take care of themselves, they were just totally out of luck. If they did have the means, what they would probably do is take their employer to court. And so we did have, you know, more than 100 years ago, quite a problem of employers getting sued by their employees whenever they got hurt. So we have this workers' compensation system now, this no-fault insurance system is supposed to take care of all that. Accident or injury, you file a claim, the worker gets to take care of, the employer gets to go on with their business. Good for everybody. Better for business, better for workers. That's what we like to say here. Over the years, we've kind of taken responsibility for some other types of insurance coverage. In New York State, we require disability benefits insurance. This covers off-the-job accidents, injuries, and illnesses. This is a small wage replacement, up to $170 a week for up to 26 weeks. It's not that much, but it helps, right? Somebody's struggling with an illness or an injury that happened off the job, and they can't go to work for a little while. This is to give them a little bit of help. You know, again, keep food on the table, keep a roof over the head, take care of your family, take care of yourself. That's the point here. So who needs this coverage, right? Businesses with workers, with employees, need to have coverage. They got to have the workers' compensation coverage on day one, right? So the first day that you bring somebody on board, you need to have coverage for them. You should be talking to insurance carriers or insurance brokers, however you want to buy your insurance. There's a couple different ways to do that. We'll talk about that later. But you should be having those conversations before you start your new employees. So once you start thinking about hiring, you're a small business, you're just starting to scale up, you're going to hire your first workers, you should be pricing out insurance before you hire that first worker and before they come to work. With the disability and the paid family leave, note I didn't mention paid family leave yet because we're going to do a whole section on paid family leave at the end. But with the disability and paid family leave insurance, those are usually purchased together, right? The paid family leave is going to be a rider on the disability insurance policy. And you don't need to have that in place until 4 weeks after the 30th day of employment. So you got a little bit of wiggle room there, but it's probably good practice to just start having those conversations when you're pricing out the workers' comp policy. You can also talk to the same insurance providers and ask them, you know, hey, I'm also going to need disability and paid family leave, and they can help get you squared away. So I just said businesses with employees need to have coverage, right? So what does that mean? What is an employee? Well, for the Workers' Compensation Board, how we define an employee is anyone that provides any services to a for-profit business is an employee. That means volunteers, that means family members, spouses, children, cousins, neighbors, anybody who helps your business, who provides services, helps your for-profit business make money is an employee. When you're looking at not-for-profits, it's a little bit different. We focus a little bit more on the compensation. Compensation we're talking about here is the pay. You know, if people are getting paid by the not-for-profit, they need to be covered. We don't necessarily require not-for-profits to get workers' compensation policies to cover their volunteers, but there are, you know, some different rules and exceptions you can go see on our website. Also, if you are involved in a not-for-profit and you got questions, you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to dig into that in detail. So who doesn't have to have this insurance, right? If you're a sole proprietor and you have no employees, if you're a partner in a partnership with no employees, if you're a one or two person corporation, you don't have to have workers' compensation insurance. If you're a corporation and you add a third owner, then you do. You know, don't ask me, I didn't write the rules, but that's what the law says. 1 or 2 person corporations with no employees, you're okay. You add a third owner to the corporation, you do need to have workers' comp. With LLCs, if the only people that are being compensated within that LLC are members of the LLC or owners of the LLC, then it doesn't matter how many, but for LLCs, if the only people involved are the owners, then you're good. You don't need to have workers' compensation insurance there either. Now, I also kind of want to take a minute to say that just because you don't have to have insurance doesn't mean that you can't go out and get it if you want it. As we're talking about, you know, managing an accident or an injury or an illness that happens on the job, if you don't think, you may be a sole proprietor, you may not have any employees, but if you don't think that you can survive, that you'll be able to take care of yourself and your family if something happens to you on the job, you might want to look into getting a workers' compensation policy that covers yourself, and you can do that even as the owner. So how much is this going to cost you? Well, workers' compensation premiums are primarily decided by classification codes. There's an organization called the New York Compensation and Insurance Rating Board that does a ton of research on accidents, injuries, medical costs, and they come up with these classification codes, basically how hazardous is a particular type of work, and that ends up deciding how much your workers' compensation premium is going to be. You know, it's always decided as a percentage of your payroll, so naturally the size of your payroll is going to affect the cost. The one thing you can do as an owner, and we'll talk more about this later, is operate safely. Just like any other type of insurance, if you're crashing your car all the time, your car insurance is going to go up. If you have lots of accidents and injuries in the workplace, your workers' compensation insurance is going to go up. You will have an annual audit every year with your insurance carrier. They're going to review you. They don't expect you to tell them every single time you add and subtract employees. They review that information at the end of the year through an audit process. And that's the time they're going to look at, well, how many employees did you say you had at the beginning of the year? How many employees do you have now? What are they doing? And they'll make adjustments. You may end up paying more next year, or, you know, in many cases, you end up getting a credit, because if you have fewer employees at the end of the year than you started with, your premium is going to go down. And then the one area where the insurance carriers have a little bit of wiggle room is their administrative expenses. And that's why one thing that I recommend over and over and over again to people is shop around for your workers' compensation insurance. You can get it from a number of different private carriers. You can also get it from the New York State Insurance Fund, but there's no harm in shopping around and comparing one policy and one carrier with another. I do like to brag here that in 2024, we reduced our assessment rate. What that means is the percentage of every workers' compensation premium that is taken and used to fund the board has been decreased this year by more than ½ percentage point, which we believe should save the businesses in New York approximately $53 million. So we can thank Governor Hochul for that. I really appreciate it. You know, trying to help businesses however we can. We hear you. It's getting expensive, so we're cutting a little bit from our piece. So what other kinds of things does the Advocate for Business talk about? Well, we get lots of calls and questions about specific coverage issues. Some of this stuff we've already kind of addressed a little bit here and there if you've been listening closely, but I'll get into it a little more over the next couple of slides. You know, sole proprietor situations we already discussed with independent contractors and subcontractors. There's a lot to unpack there. Domestic employees, that may not be what the people who joined this call are expecting to talk about, but I do like to mention them. In many cases, you don't need to have coverage for domestic employees if they're working, you know, fewer than a certain number of hours a week. But if they're working 40 hours or more a week, you do need to have coverage for them. So I would encourage you, if you've got a nanny or a home health aide or some other type of domestic worker at your house, to contact us and let's talk about it and make sure you are in compliance with the law. So before we dig any deeper, let's test ourselves. Let's see what we know. You know, how much we already know and understand about workers' comp. So let's say we got a nice entrepreneur here named Jen. Jen wants to start her own SAT tutoring service. She's going to hire independent contractors. Right on the last slide I mentioned independent contractors. So Jen wants to hire independent contractors for all the tutoring services. She's going to pay them with 1099. The parents are then going to contact Jen to match their children with tutors. The parents are going to pay Jen, and Jen is going to pay all these tutors. So I want you to think about this question for a second, and if you want to be daring, you could throw your answer into the chat bar. But do you think that Jen is required to get workers' compensation insurance for these independent contractors that she's working with? I'm going to give you guys just a few minutes. Maybe somebody would be daring enough to throw an answer in there before I give it away. So Tony says yes. Khalifa says no. But she should. Okay, interesting. So I'm pretty sure Tony's been to a number of my webinars before. So I'm going to go with his answer. Yes, Jen needs to have workers' compensation insurance for these tutors. Okay, so let's talk a little about independent contractors, right? Because we mentioned that. Jen's going to hire all these people. She's calling them independent contractors. She's paying them with 1099. But that is not enough when it comes to workers' compensation. We're going to look at a number of different factors when we try to determine if somebody is, for workers' compensation purposes, an independent contractor. There's a whole list on our website at wcb.my.gov with a number of different criteria. Here's 3 examples of those criteria, right? But we're looking primarily at the time and manner in which the work is being done. Who's controlling that? Who is, you know, another term we use all the time, direction and control. Who has direction and control for these workers? You know, do they have their own FEINs? Do they maintain a separate business establishment? Do they work for anyone else? Do they market their services to anyone else? Those are all the kinds of questions that we're going to ask. But we're really trying to make sure that when somebody's out there working and something happens to them, we want to know who told them, where to go, what to do, and how to do it. That's the person that's responsible for that individual. And if somebody else is controlling the time and manner in which the work is done, and any of these other criteria, then, you know, the worker is not really an independent contractor. They're working for someone else. You know, the 1099, that's a tax thing. Workers' comp, we don't really care about your 1099 forms. We care about who is telling the person what to do, where to go, how to do it. You know, and again, I'm happy to answer more questions about that. But generally, you know, are your independent contractors really independent? If not, you need to cover them with a workers' compensation policy. On the same line of thinking, when it comes to construction, you know, very often people bring laborers on and off a job site. We have something in New York called the Construction Industry Fair Play Act. A worker on a job site, construction site, is presumed to be an employee of one of the established businesses on that job site unless that worker can be proved to have their own business. Okay, that is to make sure, you know, we're trying to address the situation where, you know, a contractor will pick up a laborer for a day, and then something happens to that laborer, and then everybody starts saying, oh, no, he's not mine, or she doesn't belong to me. No, a worker on a construction site is presumed to be the employee of one of those businesses on that job site unless it can be proved that they have and operate their own business. Furthermore, general contractors in the realm of construction are liable for the workers' compensation claims of any uninsured subcontractors. Okay, so if you're working as a general contractor and you work with subcontractors, you should be making sure that they all have their own workers' compensation policies that cover their employees, or you're going to be the one who's responsible for that. And, you know, you're going to be asked about that. So one of the things that we recommend is that if you are a general contractor, you should ask all your subcontractors to add you as a certificate holder on their New York State workers' compensation insurance policy. The insurance carriers all know what this means, to add somebody as a certificate holder. And basically what that means is you as a general contractor, you'll be able to produce that certificate of insurance if you need to provide proof that your subcontractors are insured. Your insurance carrier is going to want to know that, because when you buy your policy, you tell them what to do and you say you're a general contractor, they're going to know that you're working with subcontractors. And if you can't prove to the insurance carrier that you have subcontractors have their own insurance policies, your carrier is going to charge you for those subcontractors that you work with. And then also when you apply for contracts, grants, permits, things like that, you are going to need to be able to produce proof of workers' compensation for yourself or your subcontractors. So being that certificate holder will allow you as a GC to do that, to get those certificates and get information from the carrier without depending on the subcontractor every time. Now let's talk about the penalties. All right, big stuff here. If you don't get the required workers' compensation policies or disability and paid family leave, the penalties can get very, very high. For workers' comp, we're looking at about $2,000 for every 10 days out of compliance. And then on top of that, you know, it's a misdemeanor if there's 5 employees or less. If it's more than 5 employees, we can get an additional penalty, and you're also looking at a felony and possible jail time. We take this workers' compensation stuff very, very seriously. Nobody wants to see somebody get hurt on the job and not get taken care of. So the penalties are very stiff. Misclassification is the same as being uninsured. What that means is if you lie to your insurance carrier, intentionally or not, if you don't tell your insurance carrier exactly what kind of work your workers are doing, you say they're doing less hazardous work than they really are. You're a roofing company and you say all your workers are software engineers instead, they're going to penalize you with the same penalties if you had no insurance at all. So don't do that. Another consequence of not getting workers' compensation insurance is if you are penalized for both the workers' compensation or the disability, that penalty automatically lands you on the New York State debarment list. This is not a place that you want to be if you're a business owner. This means no grants, no government contracts, no permits, okay? And you're stuck on there if you're one of those misdemeanor people with 5 or fewer employees. It's going to be 1 year on the list. If you have more than 5 employees and you get that felony, you'll be on this debarment list for 5 years. No permits, no contracts, no grants with the government. You don't want to be there. Okay, make sure you're in compliance with the law. If you do find yourself in the situation where you get a penalty, call us, okay? Really be responsive. If you get any mail from the Workers' Compensation Board, open it up and respond to it, please, okay? We can help you. You know, even if you do get a penalty, we are in the business of making sure people comply with the law. So we're not, you know, trying to hammer you. If you get a penalty and you come to us and you can prove that you went out and got the insurance that you were supposed to have in the first place, we can reduce that penalty to something significantly less. So again, get a penalty from the board, call us. Don't just ignore it. You cannot bankrupt your way out of a workers' compensation penalty. It's going to follow you forever. Don't let it happen to you if you get one of these penalties. Let's start working on it right away. Like I said, we can do settlements, we can do payment plans, we can do whatever we have to do to help you get on with your way. Again, we're not trying to kill businesses here. We're just trying to make sure that all the employees are taken care of if something happens. So, costs, they're expensive, right? You got to buy this workers' compensation insurance. How can you, as a business owner, keep your costs down? Well, on the one hand, make sure your classification codes are correct. Like I just said, you can be penalized if you give people the wrong classification code and say that your workers are doing safer work than they're really doing. But the flip side of that is if you're classifying your workers as doing something more dangerous than the work that they're really doing, you're going to pay more money. So again, just like any other things that you're responsible for as a business owner, stay on top of your insurance carrier. Make sure that they're identifying and classifying your workers correctly. If you do have an accident or an injury, be responsive and follow your claims. Your responsiveness, your behavior as a customer of your insurance carrier is going to affect how much money you have to pay them, just like anything else. If you're a good customer, you'll be rewarded for that. If you're a bad customer, you'll be penalized. And then finally, the one thing you have the most control over is operate safely, okay? The best accident is the accident that never happens, okay? Your premiums are not going to go up if you're not sending people to the emergency room. So operate safely. Let's talk a little bit about safety here. One thing that you can do as an employer to have a safer workplace is create something called the Labor Management Safety Committee. You can have your management and your workers meeting on a regular basis. You know, if you want to get into the formal rules, you can do that. But really what this is about is just making sure that your management and your leaders are meeting regularly with the workers to specifically talk about safety topics. Walk the job site together. Make sure all the equipment is being taken care of correctly. Make sure that the workers know that if they have concerns or if there's something unsafe or if there's a machine that they don't feel like is behaving properly, that they're comfortable enough and empowered to tell you about it so that you can fix it or take the steps to improve the training, or, put the sticky tacky tape on the stairs or whatever you need to do to help make sure that your workers are protected and that you don't end up with one of these accidents or injuries. But you definitely want to create an environment and a culture where people are comfortable talking about this stuff, and the Labor Management Safety Committee is a great way to do that. All right, just kind of went ahead on this slide, so I'm going to skip right past it. Another program I like to tell people about, New York State Department of Labor has a workplace safety prevention and incentive program. If you, as an employer, voluntarily create a safety plan, a drug and alcohol prevention plan, and or return to work program, you could save up to 10% on your workers' comp insurance, which is pretty nice savings, all right? A lot of people don't know what return to work is, so I'm taking a minute to explain that to you. One thing that we've been spending a lot of time looking at, people in the safety and insurance professions is how long people stay out of work. If we can work to get people back into the office faster, the outcomes are usually better. There's a lot of studies that people who stay out of work for more than 6 months at a time with an accident or an injury tend to never come back. So the idea is to try to get them back as fast as possible. And if you can plan for this and you can identify, think about like low risk, limited work that a person can do if they're recovering from an accident or injury, that's great. Get them back into that routine of getting up, going to work, being productive, feeling valued and important. You got to do these things for people. It's a hard thing to do to recover from an accident or an injury. And if you don't work proactively to try to ease people back into the workplace, there's a good chance they may never come back, and we don't want to see that. So we want to reward you, and definitely if you want to learn more about return to work programs, reach out to us. We'd be happy to spend more time talking to you and connect you with those folks at the Department of Labor. Department of Labor has another great program I'd like to tell you about called the On-Site Consultation Program. All right, you can have an OSHA-trained specialist from the New York State Department of Labor come and do a walkthrough of your job site, review your equipment. They'll do air sampling, noise sampling, all that great stuff to make sure that you're taking care of your workers. They'll give you suggestions. They'll give you a whole write-up of things that you can do to improve your safety. And there are no fines or penalties associated with this program. You will not find yourself on some bad boy list or bad girl list just because you called and let somebody come in and work and look at your job site. This is all about safer workplaces, protecting workers. There is no risk to this. Please, take advantage of these programs if you can. So, quick summary. Did I just do, well, the animations are going crazy here. I'm going back one slide. Just a quick summary here. You as an employer, these are your responsibilities of workers' compensation. Get the insurance that you need. When you get your insurance, they're going to send you posters for you to display in your workplace. Put them up so that your employees know that they're covered and who's covering them. And usually those posters give you some guidance on what to do when you have a claim. If there is an accident or an injury, report that claim right away. The faster, the better. The sooner, the better. Important to know that employees cannot be discriminated against for filing a claim, but that doesn't mean that you cannot terminate an employee because they filed a claim. If you have a valid business reason, such as lack of work, downturn in the economy, or if the employee has a history of misconduct and insubordination and absenteeism, their accident or injury is not going to protect them. You can still terminate them if you want to, just so you know that, but not just because of the claim. Keep that in mind. I also like to mention that in New York State, employees are eligible for all the benefits of the workers' compensation, the disability, and the paid family leave, regardless of immigration or citizenship status. So now, like I told you in the beginning, we're going to talk about paid family leave at the end. We get a lot of questions about paid family leave, so we got a whole section on this. Paid family leave is new. It was just passed a couple of years ago. This is the most robust paid family leave program in the United States of America. Paid family leave insurance will provide your workers with job-protected paid time off to bond with a new child, care for sick family members, and assist loved ones when a family member is deployed abroad. When we're talking about children, we're talking about bonding for both parents within the first 12 months, and this can be for a birth, an adoption, or foster care. So this is a great benefit for your workers. It's good for morale, and you as employers, you can get your own paid family leave policy. I get a lot of questions about that. Well, what about us? Can we get paid family leave time off? Yes, you can. You can add yourself to your paid family leave. You can even get a paid family leave if you're a sole proprietor with no employees. With the caring for the sick family members, just to clarify here, we're looking at any of the following can apply: spouse, domestic partner, children, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, steps, in-laws. The family members can live outside New York State and even outside the U.S. So you can use this benefit to care for a family member who might be in Europe or Africa or somewhere. So it's a great benefit for your workers. Those serious health conditions, we define them as conditions that require inpatient care or continuing treatment, supervision by a healthcare provider. We learned that the COVID-19 diagnosis can be considered a serious health condition, and you can use these benefits if the COVID-19 situation meets the standard. Military deployment, if anybody's got any family members or friends in the military, you know any of these things could happen: short notice deployments, mandatory military events, R&R, required counseling, post-deployment activities. These are all reality for people who are in the military, and paid family leave is now there to assist those family members to care and help out their military family members. So most private employers with one or more employees in New York State are required to have paid family leave insurance in place. Okay, I didn't need to go back to that slide. It's pretty straightforward. So when we're talking about sole proprietors, I kind of already mentioned this, but this is good to know. If you're one of those sole proprietors or other individuals who are not required by law to have the insurance, but you voluntarily decide to get it, if you make that decision and you opt in and you get your paid family insurance within the first 26 weeks of starting the business, there is no waiting period for how soon you can use the benefit. If you wait until after 26 weeks of starting the business, you have to wait 2 years before you can use the paid family benefit. So just keep that in mind. If your business has already been up and running for more than 26 weeks and you decide to get the PFL coverage, you will not be able to use it for 2 years. So what are the benefits of taking the paid family leave? Well, eligible employees can get up to 12 weeks at 67% of their average weekly wage, which is capped at 67% of the New York average weekly wage, which is currently $1,718.15. Okay, this will be calculated based on the last 8 weeks of the employee's work prior to taking the paid family leave. Employees can take this time off all at once or intermittently, but it has to be in full day increments. You can't take like an hour of paid family leave in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, or whatever. It has to be full day increments. Just do that again. So who's going to pay for the coverage? So employee payroll contributions will cover the paid family leave, and it's set at a rate that's decided by the Department of Financial Services. Current cost information is available on our website. Right now, I think it's like 0.337 or something like that. So it's a pretty small number. I think the maximum amount that an employee can be charged for paid family leave in the year is somewhere around $300. That's the maximum. So again, so it's not very expensive, and it's not coming out of your pocket as the employer. You're taking the paid family leave contributions directly from your employees' paychecks. So who is eligible for paid family leave? So any of your employees who meet these minimums, if they work a schedule of 20 more hours a week, once they've been there for 26 weeks, they're eligible. Part-time employees who work less than 20 hours are still eligible, but they have to work more than 175 days. Now, those 175 days do not need to be consecutive. And once again, New York State citizenship and or immigration status is not a factor in determining eligibility. So, can employees waive coverage? Some people say that I'm never going to use the benefit. Why do I have to pay for it, right? Because I did mention the employees are the ones paying for this. Employees can waive coverage only if they meet these requirements. If they work fewer than 20 hours and won't work 175 days in a year, they can waive the coverage. If they work more than 20 hours but aren't going to be with the employer for more than 26 weeks, they can also waive the coverage. So again, if they meet those requirements, they can waive coverage. I have not heard of too many people waiving the coverage because it's a great benefit and it's not very expensive. But if an employee wants and they come to you and they say that I want to do this, you have to let them. If you do get a waiver for an employee and you don't cover them and their schedule changes that they no longer qualify, that waiver is going to be automatically revoked and the contributions will start up automatically. So just, recap of your responsibilities as an employer. Make sure you have the paid family leave coverage. Pay the premiums with funds collected from employee payroll deductions. Provide information about paid family leave to your employees. Make sure that they know that you have this insurance and that they have this benefit available to them. Okay, you're probably going to get a poster with your policy. You can put it up so they know. Make sure that you provide the wage information to your insurance carrier when an employee requests paid family leave so they calculate the right amount. And I'm going to put this out there right now, not just for the paid family leave, but also for the workers' compensation. When you have an employee who goes out, whether it's out on workers' comp, out on disability, out on paid family leave, you need to tell your insurance carrier when they come back so that the insurance carrier stops paying them benefits. Because if they pay them benefits and then you start paying them benefits, they're getting double. And then the insurance carrier, when they realize they're going to come looking for that money again, they're going to want it back. And, that's not really a good situation to be in. So you, as the employer, please make sure that you notify your insurance carrier when the employee returns to work and they're not taking the benefit anymore. More information about paid family leave. We have an attorney of the day here at the board every day just to talk about paid family leave. The telephone number to talk to that attorney of the day is 844-337-6303. There's also a ton of great information on the paidfamilyleave.my.gov website. And then you can also reach out to us at the Advocate's Office, and we're happy to help you as well if you have any questions. So wrapping up, I'm just going to kind of plug our new investment in the Workers' Compensation Board. We are building a new business information system that is supposed to help the insurance carriers, the medical providers, and the employers talk to each other better, right? That's the whole point of these business information systems are. So we are working to modernize and get better here at the Workers' Compensation Board, and I'm happy to tell you about that if you're interested and you want to learn more. If you're a social media type, you can follow the board. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. And one thing that I recommend everybody do is go to our website, wcb.my.gov, type into the search field on the top, get WCB notifications. That will take you to the page where you can sign up and get notifications from the board and stay informed as we put out information that's valuable to employers, valuable to employees. Just, stay in the know. This is important stuff. It's a resource. It's a requirement. It's a law you have to follow as a business owner, making sure that you comply with the workers' compensation law. Stay informed. Be a knowledgeable, stakeholder in New York State. Get these notifications from us. Finally, here's my telephone number and my office email address. We have real people here who are going to help you. This is not going to send you to a call center. You will not be speaking to somebody in Arizona or another country. You're going to get somebody who works directly with me here in New York at the Workers' Compensation Board, and we are going to help you solve your problems. So if you learn nothing else from this whole presentation, take this telephone number, take this email address, and keep it handy so that when you do have questions or concerns or problems, or you get one of those penalty letters or anything else from the Workers' Compensation Board, you can reach out to me and my team, and we will help you. I'm going to leave this slide up for a few minutes. The next slide just says any questions. I don't think I need to put that up. I can just say, hey, does anybody have any questions? I am happy to try to answer them. What do we have? Okay, I got a question here from Khalifa. Great question here. If a person cannot do their job due to sudden disability, what are the first steps that need to be taken by the employer? Okay, well, definitely the claim will need to be filed by the employee. okay? And if the employee needs help with the claim, usually the instructions are on the poster, but you're going to call, the employee's going to call your insurance carrier and let them know that they're going to file a claim. There's also a form to fill out for the Workers' Compensation Board called a C3. But if you go to the Workers' Compensation Board website, wcb.my.gov, there's going to be a tab there that just says, you know, file a claim. And that's going to get you to the right paperwork for the Workers' Compensation Board. But what's generally going to happen is that you, as an employer, need to make sure if the employee has not notified your insurance carrier, you got to notify your insurance carrier. Your insurance carrier should be notified within 10 days of the employee saying that they want to file a claim and notifying us here at the Workers' Compensation Board that they're going to file a claim. And then, you know, just like, I don't know if you have any experience with car insurance, homeowners insurance, or anything else, these insurance carriers, they're professionals. Once you reach out to them and you say, you know, hi, I'd like to file a claim, they're going to help you. They're going to help you with that process. They're going to tell you what you need to do and how to do it. But definitely, you know, first steps, notify the Workers' Compensation Board and notify the insurance carrier, and then we'll help you from there, us and the insurance carrier. That's how it's going to work. I also have a question here. Do we help auto repair shops by doing a walkthrough to recommend hazards? Yes. Okay, it doesn't matter what type of business you are. I did mention this is a program that's not actually housed here at the Workers' Compensation Board. It's housed at the New York State Department of Labor, but they have something called the On-Site Consultation Program. Let me go back to that slide for you. And I have a telephone number there if it's something that you want to do. On-Site Consultation Program, here it is. If you're interested in having whatever business you're in, whether it's an auto repair shop or you're a construction company, or even, you know, a lot of people think you don't need to think about this stuff if you have an office or you work indoors. But let me tell you, the #1 accident or injury that happens all across New York State is slips and falls downstairs, falls on, you know, mopped floors, wet floors, things like that. So you never know where those hazards are. Accidents can happen at any time to any person, no matter whether you think you're safe or whether you think you have a really low-risk job. There's no reason, especially with this Department of Labor program, it is free. Okay, your tax dollars already paid for it, so you don't have to pay anything else. Let them come in and give you some advice. Thank you for the kind words there, Tony. I really appreciate it. For everyone else, I think I'm gonna hang around for about 5 more minutes if anybody thinks of any more questions, and then I'm gonna shut it down and get back to work. So please, clock's ticking. Any questions at all? 5 minutes. Although I probably shouldn't scare you. You can call my office anytime, well, within business hours. And, or you can call us after hours and leave us a message. You want to call us at 3 o'clock in the morning and leave us a message, you absolutely can. We'll get back to you the next day. But here's the number, here's the email. We are here to help. This is our whole job, is to help employers. If you are an employer or you're an HR professional, somebody helping an employer, keep this number, keep this email address. You never know when you're going to need us. Once again, I'm just going to emphasize, open your government mail, whether it's from the Workers' Compensation Board or any other government agencies. That is becoming one of the biggest issues in 2024 with being a New York State government agency trying to, you know, assist constituents, whether it's employers or whether it's individuals, is that folks they're not opening their mail. You know, they're getting out of the habit. People have moved everything to electronic mail. The problem is with stuff like your workers' compensation insurance and important business filings, we still depend on snail mail and address of record. So you will be getting letters in the mail from government agencies like the Workers' Compensation Board, and you should be checking them and making sure that there's not something really important there that you need to respond to. So that's my final little piece of advice. Again, I'm going to keep this up for a few more minutes, and then we'll shut it down. So any questions, throw them in there now, or reach out to us later, and we're happy to help. Thank you so much.